this PTSD that is going to be happening to the younger generations is not from the hidden aspect of sexuality. It's from the overexposure to distorted sexuality that is everywhere.
Welcome to Mind, Body, Health, and Politics. I'm your host, Dr. Richard Lewis Miller. The mission of Mind, Body, Health, and Politics is to enhance your physical and emotional well-being and encourage community. And I say encourage community because I believe that human beings are basically tribal animals, and we do our best when we live tribally. In tribes, we sustain one another, we're emotionally supportive of one another, and we can even be financially supportive of one another. And this is particularly important at the present time when 70% of America are living paycheck to paycheck. When more than any other time in American history, college graduates are going to live with their parents again after graduating from college. And people are waiting longer and longer to get married and have children. And that's because of the socioeconomic stratification that's been going on, making it more and more difficult to people just to make basic needs. But by getting together tribally, a lot of these issues can be accounted for. Give it some thought. I'd like to hear what you think about different ways of living together rather than the standard normative heterosexual coupling that ends up with 50% of the marriages in the country ending in divorce. Isn't it time we looked at alternate ways of living together and sustaining ourselves? A person who is doing something very strong with her own life in terms of presenting us with alternate lifestyles is Sasha Cobra, who's been traveling the world. We're going to talk about her travels for years now, talking about spiritual ways of living differently, particularly with regard to human sexuality. Welcome to Mind, Body, Health, and Politics, Sasha.
Thank you very much, Richard. Thank you for having me back after all these years.
All of these years since we last talked to each other on this program. You have been traveling the world. Wow. Tell us a little bit about some of your travels, and then we'll get into details of your work.
Well, first to remember, and I don't remember the exact year, but I think it's probably been close to 15 years since the last time that me and you connected. That's my guess. And since those 15 years, I basically spent the majority of them literally just traveling around the world, doing workshops, retreats, and private sessions all over. Mostly in Western countries, so definitely has a flavor to that type of mentality, but all over the world.
And I want to hear some details, some content of the nature of the seminars that you're teaching to the world.
When I first started doing this work, a lot of it had to do with sexuality. And it's an area of our life that we oftentimes neglect and we try to push under the rug while still maintaining our health, still maintaining intimate relationships, and also growing spiritually. And one of the things that a lot of people don't realize is that you are sex. You were created in sex. You are sexual energy, the embodiment, the living form of sexual energy. So to avoid exploring that area of yourself and to avoid understanding yourself as a sexual being is a way of neglecting your own self. And it's very difficult to grow spiritually or in intimacy or basically in any area of your life, neglecting who you truly really are, which is sexual energy manifested into physical form. So initially when I was doing this work, it was very much focused on, let's say, more of the sexual aspect. And then what I realized is that the sexual part is significant and important, But in order for people to really understand sexuality, have beautiful connections and intimacy, and also to have health when it comes to their sexual health, they have to address many other things in their life as well, starting at the root of their life's journey, the experiences that they've had and how those experiences have affected them. So my work shifted into doing a lot of work around trauma, a lot of work around sexual trauma and just trauma in general, because all of those memories, all of those negating beliefs that we carry due to the experiences that we've had impact our lives immensely, and not just mentally and emotionally, but also physically. You know, when people have chronic pain or even autoimmune diseases. So what my work is about is embracing your sensual nature and using orgasmic states for healing. And it's something that's quite uncommon. We're so used to thinking of orgasmicness not even as a state, which it is, but of orgasms. We always think of orgasms as things that we have seen on, in pornography or in Hollywood movies, or what we think is this peak type of orgasm, without recognizing that orgasmicness is our natural state of aliveness. And so while many people strive and want to have, a peak type of orgasm, there's a whole spectrum of joy and aliveness and radiance and vibrancy that a lot of people miss, that brings blissful and ecstatic experiences to what we call the human experience. And in order for us to get to that, orgasmicness is a healing modality, and it brings about also the natural state of orgasmicness, which we can take into our day-to-day life. So much of what, and it's quite funny because I always have this joke when I'm doing workshops. In fact, I'm doing one this weekend. So I'm doing a 3-day workshop this weekend in Tulum, Mexico.
Where?
In Tulum, Mexico.
Okay, yes.
So I'm kind of my inside joke always when I get people into the room, I always say, I know you come here because you want to have greater sexual experiences, you want to be orgasmic, you want to have more intimacy. But realistically, what we need to teach you how to do first and foremost is how to feel.
I see. What I found so exciting and important about your work when I first interviewed you, as you say, maybe 15 years ago, is that you were one of the few people traveling the world teaching people how to make love, how to have sex.
Yes.
And I championed you for that. And as I said in my book, which you can see on the shelf behind me, Freeing Sexuality, I asked the public, where do you learn how to make love? In the schoolyard? In school? From your teachers? From pornography? From books? Who taught you how to make love? And the answer is nobody teaches anybody in our culture how to make love, and you have to learn it in the schoolyard or pornography or somewhere in a book or something. But you were actually teaching people how to make love. And
Absolutely.
It sounds, and I hope that you're still teaching how to make love as part of the seminar.
I'm definitely teaching people how to make love, but what is very important and what has shifted is when I first started doing this work, I wanted to share more things that were dealing with technique, for example, things that one can do, more instructional type stuff. And what I realized is that no technique will be efficient in any kind of way if you don't have a strong foundation for what intimacy is really about. And you have to also remember, when you speak to me about this topic, you're not calling it sex, you're calling it lovemaking. So what are we doing? We are loving each other physically. And it is unfortunate because we no longer even understand how to stay in the vibration of love during any aspect of our life, not to mention in sex. So rather than focusing so much on techniques, which there are many, what people need to understand first and foremost is that lovemaking is an energetic phenomenon. It's not friction oriented the way that we have been taught. It's not about this boom, boom, boom that we see in pornography. It's not about peak orgasms. It is literally a physical opportunity for us to give and receive love. So in communicating about this topic and in teaching people about this topic, what comes up are the traumas that keep them from being able to love and be loved, are all of the blockages energetically that keep them from being able to be in their body, to actually feel. So a lot of the work that I do now is about removing the blockages from the body so that a man can even feel his penis. I mean, you will be blown away. I want to also revert back to a point you just made, that you're right, no one's teaching about sex, right? At least nobody was 15 years ago, that's for sure. And I would say that now there's a lot more of these kind of new age influencer teachers that just pop up. You know, they read a few books and they just take that information and put it up on Instagram and become known and all of a sudden become kind of sex gurus, right? Without actually having this experience. But again, the same way that you cannot learn and should not learn about sex in the locker room or through porn, a lot of the teachings now about sex are still empty as well.
Because they're focusing on technique and not the underlying vibration of the energy transfer that we call intimacy.
We can call it intimacy, but to even be more, let's say, kind of precise, we're talking about an energetic connection.
Yes.
Lovemaking is all about energy. So what does it require for you to show up energetically? You have to feel, you have to be in your body, and you have to be willing to feel through everything that keeps you from showing up fully, which for a lot of people, it's the shame they hold, the religious dogma that they hold, their past hurts from past relationships. So there's so much stuff that sits in the way between them and being able to show up fully, energetically, to feel. A lot of people don't understand that sex is a bodily experience. It's not a mental experience. And nowadays, especially now, with pornography being so readily available online, we have now a culture of sexuality that has become a mental phenomenon. So people will watch pornography, they stimulate themselves through mental images, they arouse themselves through mental images, and then when they get into the bedroom with a real human being, they've been practicing so much of mentalizing about sex that it makes it very challenging for them to actually get out of their mind, which is completely unnecessary in the sex act, and into their body to actually be in the body to feel. That's where the energy is. And this also leads to a topic that is a huge topic worldwide of why women struggle so much in having an orgasm. Right? Why is this a common theme that has been now kind of normalized by society? Is it because women are so broken that there's something so wrong with them that they're unable to orgasm? Absolutely not. And you will be amazed at how many women come to me, not because they want to just learn about sexuality. They come to me because they literally think they're broken. They literally think that everybody else is having pleasure, but me no, because there must be something wrong with me. And what no one talks about, in this topic, the theme is always around, what does a woman have to do to be orgasmic? How do I have an orgasm? But we don't actually talk about that it takes two to tango. And men nowadays are also very much responsible for the lack of orgasms that women have. It's not necessarily that the woman is just unable to have one. It's that in order for her to orgasm, she has to feel energy. And see, we have a culture where it's not really a culture, it's just a natural phenomenon where for a man, if there's enough friction, if there's enough rubbing, if there's enough movement on his penis, some way, somehow, something happens, he has an experience, he ejaculates, and we say that's pleasure. I'm saying that even the male experience of boom, 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 rub, 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 and ejaculation is a tiny fraction of the pleasure that the man is capable of experiencing. So it's not just women that are missing out, it's men too.
Here.
And so why?
Here.
We come back, yes, we come back to the topic of the fact that men have an experience. I'm not saying it's so pleasureful. I'm saying that their capacity for pleasure is way greater than what we have normalized. But for women, that rubbing, that friction, what works for men, for their little experience, doesn't work for women at all. In fact, the more friction a woman's vaginal canal has, the more numb and desensitized she becomes. So for a woman to have orgasms, for her to feel pleasure in her vagina during lovemaking, she has to feel energy in her vagina. So then we go back again to the same topic. Where is this energy coming from? If you go to a man, the average man, and you ask him, very sincerely, give him a moment to self-reflect, if he can energetically feel his penis, most men cannot. So if I, for example, told you right now to feel your left hand without touching it, without moving it, can you find it?
Yes.
Energetically speaking, you can feel it, right?
Definitely.
Great. Now feel your left shoulder. Can you find it energetically?
Definitely.
Great. So then if you go to different parts of your body, you'll say, okay, I could feel it, I could feel it. Now, can you feel your penis?
Definitely.
Excellent. So you would be an exception to that.
I imagine I am, but I definitely can feel my penis, and I know what you're talking about, and I know about the disconnect that most men have.
Oh, most. Absolutely most.
Yeah, a very high percentage are disconnected. But remember, you're talking to an unusual person here, so it's not a good example. Because
Right.
I also believe that at this very moment, you and I are making love to each other during this interview by the way we're talking to each other.
This is also true.
Because we're open to each other, we're listening, and we're taking in the energy that the other person is sending. And I feel your energy as a loving energy coming into me, and I feel that I'm transmitting the same kind of energy back to you.
Yes.
So in terms of an energy exchange, I'm with you all the way, and that's what you and I are doing. But I also recognize that this is not true for the vast majority of the population. They might not even know what we're talking about when we talked about the fact that we're making love through this a Zoom or Riverside video interview.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's why I think your work is so important, because you're bringing to light out in the open the importance of understanding that sex, sure, can be a great physical act, but it's basically an energetic act at the very fundamental level. It's the sharing and, if you will, merging of energies.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that merging of energies that really makes it so exciting and so fulfilling, because it becomes more than 1 + 1. It becomes 1 and 1, creating a whole new energetic system through that
Absolutely.
interchange.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Everything in existence
Yes, you can see.
makes love to create.
Yeah, you can see how much we're on the same page in
Yes.
the way we, visualize and conceptualize what's going on.
If you don't mind, I just want to finish
Oh,
for the
please.
listeners. I want to finish that part. So, being very clear that me and you are on a completely different wavelength from the average person, but for the average man, they really struggle with being connected to their penis. And there are many, many reasons for that. One being, of course, the shame and the guilt, and basically the aversion even to their maleness nowadays, with the younger generations and the whole hashtag Me Too movement that happened years back. But for a lot of men, it's almost like they don't want to be a man because men historically have the stereotype of being the rapist, the abuser, the domineering one.
Yes.
So there's so much neglect from them to this part of the body. And why? Because this part of the body for the male holds an enormous amount of power. So a lot of men are scared of their power, which really is meant to be used for loving the world, not just their lover, but the world, to penetrate the world with their love and power. So when men are so disconnected from their genitals and they're unable to feel that part of the body or choose to not consciously make a practice to be connected to that part of the body, then there's no energy in the penis. And if there's no energy in the penis, when a man is penetrating a woman, she can't feel him. Mm-hmm. She can't find him. Mm-hmm. So then we think as women, there's something wrong with me. Why can't I have an orgasm? Without realizing that I might be having sex with a man that is not in his body and there's no one there, energetically speaking, for me to feel and connect with. It's also true for women that they very much struggle being in their vaginas. Again, it all comes back down to feeling. We have become a culture that does not want to feel.
Yes.
We run from any type of emotion.
Yes.
We run from any type of discomfort. And now it's easier than ever because we have a portable television in our pocket all the time.
Yes.
So we're dealing with now a huge population of people that don't feel, but what is intimacy about? Even with you saying, with your introduction, saying that 50% of marriages end in divorce. Of course, there are many reasons for that. But how many of those marriages become sexless marriages? Again, it could be for different reasons that have nothing to do with sex. But how many marriages are actually having sex that is, for one, pleasurable, life-giving, energy generating, and most importantly, healing?
Healing. Indeed.
Because we all need healing. All of us, including myself, including you, because I've never met a person to this day that has not been traumatized to some degree. Some of us have had experiences where they've really gone through what we call trauma. But for others, it could be that, we go through a crazy school system. That's traumatizing in itself. We have to live in a crazy society. That's traumatizing in itself. Anything that is going against and out of alignment with our spirit can have an impact and condition us and leave trauma behind.
Totally agree with you. As a clinician practicing for 64 years, I totally agree with you. Just being a member of the 70% who are living paycheck to paycheck, just living that way is traumatic.
Exactly.
They're living with the sword of Damocles over their neck that if they lose their job, they and their kids can be out on the street. That is traumatic.
I got goosebumps. Exactly.
And
it comes down to everything.
Sasha, I'm talking openly about the fact that I think the entire country is suffering from what I call post-traumatic sexual stress disorder. It's from growing up in a culture where sex has been so distorted and so hypocritized and so out of being able to be spoken about openly the way you speak about it, that the entire, and then when you add in religion, which is teaching people that they can't have sex before marriage, and at the same time, 95% of the women in the country are having sex before marriage, which puts them in conflict with their basic religious teaching, everyone is suffering from post-traumatic sexual stress disorder.
Yeah, and I tell you, it's interesting that you say that, because what you're saying is still true, but the flavor of it is changing for the younger generations, and I'll explain how.
Please.
Because for our generations, yourself and mine included, it was taboo. So it was the religion, it was the we can't speak about things, it was about hiding everything. It was kind of like this secret aspect of our life that we all had to figure out on our own.
Yes.
But now this, let's say, the PTSD of sexuality of the new generations is flipping to the other side of the spectrum. Because now you have the over-sexualization. Now you have pornography that 6-year-olds find on their iPads, if they have access to iPads.
Wow.
Now yes. I mean, the stories that I have heard are crazy. And they're stories that our generations, mine included, didn't have access to. You know, we didn't have internet. We had magazines for underwear, things to look at, you know, for young men back then. But now
A Sears Roebuck catalog.
Yes. Yes. And so now the younger generations, rather than depending on adults, what do they do when they want to learn something? They don't go to their parents. They go to Google.
Yes.
Right? So you want to learn about sex, you put in Google, what is sex? And then you find what you think is sex. And what do you find? Oftentimes, complete perversion, everything that is unlike love, not even natural to the human body. It's just complete sickness. But you're pure when you look at these images, meaning you don't know any better. You just know that you Googled something, you're looking at something, you're learning from something. Children learn by mimicking. So this PTSD that is going to be happening to the younger generations is not from the hidden aspect of sexuality. It's from the overexposed to distorted sexuality that is everywhere. And it's not just in pornography, it's in Hollywood movies, it's in the drag queens that are wearing a G-string, going to preschools to read children's books. It's about the music videos, the celebrities that are getting more and more raunchy and more sexualized, and that's become the norm. So we're still going to be culturally traumatized because what we're learning about sexuality, the same way that what we learned was not natural, it was repressed, what they're learning is over-sexualization versus what is natural. And what I'm teaching to people and what I'm sharing with people is what for me is natural sexuality. It's not something that is repressed. It's not something that we can't talk about, but it's not something where just because we're sexually liberated beings that we have to put on a G-string and walk down the street with it saying I can do whatever I want because I'm sexually liberated.
Yes.
It's just about being willing, and it's interesting because those people that over-sexualize still don't feel.
They're still coming. It's still more of a head trip.
Exactly. And a lot of performance, a lot of disconnect. And in a way, a lot of them actually have a lot of self-hatred as well. A lot of insecurities. You'd be surprised. A lot of people that seem to be very extroverted can be very insecure about themselves.
So that they come to your seminars, I hope.
I get all kinds of people in my seminars. At the end of the day, for me, it's humans. Sometimes people tell me, what kind of people do you work with? And I say, from 18 to 120 years old, any gender, that's it. if they're
Yeah.
human. And I think I'm even cutting out the human part, because if they are coming from extraterrestrial forms or whatever it is, everybody's welcome.
Now, Sasha, you travel the world teaching people, and are the cultures of the world basically producing similar kinds of problems with human sexuality? Is it sort of like we're all in this together and producing the same, or are different cultures creating different kinds of problems for people regarding their intimacy and the energy exchange, well,
Right.
lovemaking?
That's an excellent question, and I thought that was going to be the question you would jump to first, knowing that I had been to different parts of the world. So again, what I'm working with also is Western cultures. So unfortunately, I still have not made it to the continent of Africa, but I have worked with people from Africa in private sessions and things like that. And I have done some workshops in Asian countries to some of the Asian clientele. So what I'm saying is that my perspective is still a little bit limited, but what I will say is this. Everybody has a slightly different flavor, but all of them are struggling. And at the end of the day, we as humans deal with the same issues. On the surface, it may look different because of the culture. But when you get past that surface level, we are humans that want to love and be loved. We need affection. We need physical touch. We need sensuality. We need abundance. We need health. We need certain things that give us a great quality of life. And our desires and what we strive for as human beings and our challenges can be very, very similar. So definitely in Asian cultures, I would say things are a lot more on the taboo side. Western cultures struggle, but a lot more with over-sexualized side. And also I would say there's a whole layer of fetish communities as well, whether that is in Asian cultures or in Western cultures. It really does not matter. But everybody on the planet is struggling when it comes to sex. But I tell you another thing. Everybody on the planet struggles with. So again, for me, sex is an extension of to love and be loved.
We've really messed it up. We've taken a gift that was given to us and we've screwed it up royally, haven't we? And now we're looking for a way to correct. And that's part of your job as a healer, to help correct what we have screwed up royally. Because we've taken one of the most unique experience that all human beings have. I mean, nobody would deny that the sexual experience is an experience unto itself. It's in a category all to itself. And let's say the combined experience of making love during and using sexuality as a way to make love, transferring the energy, in your words, to each other, is a unique experience like no other. And what you're telling us, and what I know as well, and some others know, is we have messed it up royally in order for the whole world to be in the place that it's at. And I agree with you that we are in that place. The whole world is suffering from a lack of being able to express love in a very foundational way and to receive it in a foundational way.
Yes. Well, I definitely agree that things are backwards when it comes to sexuality, and that we definitely don't honor that as much as we should.
Yeah.
But I don't kind of want to say, and I'll give my perspective on it. I don't want to say that we messed it up. I really see, and I know it probably sounds funny, but for me, humans are like my children. And so when you see that children mess something up, you can get violent, you can get really nasty with them, or you can understand that the way to actually get them to grow and to change in themselves is to have compassion, love, and understanding.
Yes.
So for me, with humans being like children, I'm not choosing the path of violence. I'm not going to blame them. I'm not going to judge them. I'm not going to say you all messed it up. I'm going to say, just like I would to a child, I see that you're struggling.
Ah, beautiful.
And so if you see humans as those that are struggling, they want to do better. Children want to do better. And we were all children at some point. So do I think that humanity needs to rise up? Yes, absolutely. But I also feel that not everybody that comes to this planet has the same strength and spirit to go up against the status quo. So a lot of what has become messed up has been messed up strategically through programming and conditioning societally. It's not a coincidence that we as humans just all of a sudden decide to be violent or all of a sudden decide to do horrible things to each other. We are systematically traumatized since childhood in a whole society that is so backwards to nature that it takes us out of our natural state as loving, compassionate, joyous, orgasmic human beings into something else. And for me, the route is not through violence. For me, the route is through having that compassion to lead people to understanding and the healing that they need to turn things around. Whether that is about everything in life, because at this point, for me, it's about life in general, but focusing on sexuality because, again, if they learn how to make love in an energetic way, it becomes a healing modality for all the insanity and backwardsness that they carry in their bodies. All the trauma, all the unprocessed feelings, everything that makes them get triggered, everything that makes them be reactive is stuff that is stored in the body. Energetic lovemaking generates energy. When energy is generated in the body, it literally starts to clear out all the trauma, the unprocessed feelings, the negating beliefs, everything that is unlike love in the body. So when we're talking about lovemaking in this way, we're not just talking about, oh, you get to have pleasure and great intimacy with your partner. We're literally talking about the fact that you will become a more loving, compassionate, intelligent human being that honors life and nature, because that is what we're designed to be if we were natural and healed.
Did I hear a dog?
Yes, excuse my
Who
little
is it?
cat.
Let's see who it is. Let's
Here he
see.
comes. Here he comes.
Oh. Does this little beauty travel with you?
He does travel with me.
Oh.
This dog has probably been to more countries and airports than most people have.
So, on a personal level, Sasha, how is it for you living nomadically, doing your healing by traveling the world, spreading your healing? How is it for you to do that?
Well, for 10 years, I traveled nonstop. I literally lived out of a carry-on suitcase.
Yes.
And for the last, let's say, about 5 years,
Yes.
I did create a home base that then I would travel from. I love to travel. I love to see life. I love to see the world. I love to share with the world. So I definitely travel a lot, but I did find that I enjoy coming home and having a little nest for me to land on. And something that I started doing now, just this last year, as an ongoing service, which I have already kind of tested for the last 2 years, is, as I mentioned, I do a certain type of energy work. And this energy work uses orgasmic states to generate energy in the body for that healing, for that clearing, for expanding our capacity for pleasure, for having more energy, because it literally also changes our whole reality. When we vibrate higher, our external world matches that vibration. So it's very powerful work. And I don't know if you know this, Richard, but I was featured on a Netflix documentary in 2020, and it really blew up the work. I
didn't know that, Sasha.
You didn't know that?
Congratulations. What's the
Thank
name
you
of
very much.
I'm going to see the film tonight. What's the name of it?
It's a documentary series. It's called Unwell on Netflix.
Spell it.
And unwell, like the opposite of being well. So it's UNWELL. And it's a documentary series about alternative healing modalities. And one of those episodes is about tantra. And I'm one of the teachers that are featured in this particular episode. It's the second episode of the series. But it really, really blew up the work in a major way. And I very quickly gained a waiting list of like 500 people for a private session, and I could not keep up. So I just completely said to myself, there's no way. and started looking at how do I create a way for me to work with more people, to work more efficiently.
Yes.
And I started offering what I call energy tune, doing the same type of energy work that I was doing by phone and in person, one-on-one, but for groups of people.
In person or on Zoom?
On Zoom. And it's actually, there's a tiny little segment out of my full segment on that Netflix episode where we're doing a very small little energy tune online. So you also get to see a little taste of that.
Oh, terrific.
On the Netflix episode. But it's from the comfort of people's homes. They can have a full body orgasm experience that completely blows their mind, brings them into a high vibratory state, and takes them through a healing process.
Oh, that's fantastic, Sasha. I'm so glad. And I'm glad my listeners are going to be able to tune in. They can go to Netflix and check out Unwell, and then you can go to Sasha's website.
Yeah.
Right?
And it's also featured in a bigger segment on a Russian documentary show that came out this year, which you can find on YouTube. Maybe I can pass you a link and you can pass that to your listeners. It is in Russian, but they can read the subtitles in whatever language they want. But it's really amazing because, you know, even having done this work myself, learning to do energy work without physical touch in person, and thinking like, oh, okay, I have to be in the room for that. Then realizing I don't have to be in the room with the person to do it. I can do it by phone. So for many, many years, for basically all these years of doing this work, I was doing private sessions by phone. That's also how I was able to have clients from every part of the world, because there really is no time and space when it comes to energy. People talk about it, but they've never really had their own experience with it until you do.
Yeah.
And then I realized it's not limited for me to just work with one person.
Yes.
Anybody can plug into this field and I can transmit to many. It's really a mind-blowing experience, and the collective and the ripple effect that it has and the sensitivity that it brings to the body. I mean, I'm all the time getting messages from people just with testimonials, not only about it improving their sex life, they can feel their vaginas, they are having the biggest orgasms of their life, their relationships are better, but their money situation improves, their health improves, they get a new promotion at work. It's like everything in your existence changes when your energy changes. And again, it all comes down to sexual energy. That's what we're working with. It's the most powerful, most creative energy on the planet and all of existence. And why do we neglect it? Because like you said, the word the moment that you even bring in the word of sex, everybody freaks out. They'd rather talk about energy, but not sexual energy.
But from a certain perspective, all energy is sexual energy.
Absolutely. As I said, creation is a manifestation of sex. Everything is making love everything's making love.
Yes.
Period. Everything that is being birthed and created is a love-making act, all of it.
So
And
isn't this a wonderful thing for you that you can have a home base now and still do your work and project it around the planet from your home base without having every time, even though you like traveling, without every time having to get on the plane? What part of the world did you pick for your home base?
Puerto Rico. So I have a home in the Caribbean. That's my home base.
In Puerto Rico?
In Puerto Rico, yes. And I travel quite a bit to Mexico and to Europe as well. So it's kind of like between those three, but those are the three main bases, I would say.
Puerto Rico, Mexico, and New York?
And Europe.
And Europe.
Yes.
Uh-huh. How's your Spanish?
Muy bien. Perfecto.
Oh.
Sí, hablo español.
Excelente. Tú hablas... Si tú hablas rápido, no comprendo nada, pero hablas despacio, yo comprendo.
Mira, muy bien.
Muy despacio, por favor.
Pero muy bien, estás hablando muy bien.
Okay, so now I want to do something slightly different.
Okay.
I'm going to ask you to take a pause and make believe we ended the interview.
Okay.
And you were thinking about the interview, and check out during the pause, if the interview were over, what might be in your mind that you might say, gee, I wish I would have brought this out during the interview. Because after the pause, if you have any of those things, I'm going to ask you to reveal them. So you follow what I'm asking?
Mm-hmm.
Good. So let's take the pause. You go in and see if there's anything you want to cover that we haven't. And while you're doing that, I'm going to give a little commercial. Not to sell anything, but to remind everybody that our website, Mind, Body, Health, and Politics, is open source, which means everything on it, all the interviews from all these years are free. You can just go to the website, mindbodyhealthpolitics.org, and listen to any of the interviews. In fact, if you dig deep enough, you can hear Sasha 15 years ago and compare to how she sounds now, which, by the way, is similar but different. I certainly can hear how you've matured, evolved, and how you've gained greater wisdom. But you had plenty of it 15 years ago as well. Now back to after the pause. Can you think of anything you want our listeners to know that we might have missed?
Well, it's not something that I feel that we missed, but more of something that I want to highlight. And what I would like to highlight is to remind all humans that we are exceptionally powerful beings, and we are the embodiment of love. And love needs to be infused into every area of our life, into our sex, into our relationships in general, into our work, into how we interact with anything and everything, nature, our home, all of it. And it beautifies your life tremendously, but it becomes the guiding force for what we are truly here for and what we create in this world. And we need that more than anything. So go through your healing journey. Have the courage to sometimes feel uncomfortable in the healing journey, to come out on the other side, to be that love, the orgasmicness, the joy, the bliss, all of those beautiful things that create you being a human.
Sasha Cobra, I loved you 15 years ago when you were on the program. I loved who you were and what you stood for and what you were bringing to us. I love you now, and I love what you're doing now. I think you're an outstanding person and an outstanding contributor to our culture. And thank you so much for being on the program today. Let's not wait 15 years for the next one. I'm sure we can get an interview in before that.
I agree. And thank you for having me. It's very much a pleasure to connect with you, and now in the modern times with video. I think last time when we spoke, it was just by phone.
That's correct. That is correct.
Yeah, and pleasure to connect.
And thank you, gentle listeners, for being with us for this broadcast of Mind, Body, Health, and Politics. I remind you, we come out with a new show every week on Tuesday morning at 9 o'clock, but you can listen to it on the archive at mindbodyhealthpolitics.org at your own convenience. Until next time, this is Dr. Richard Lewis Miller reminding you that good health is worth fighting for, and it's essential for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.